Okay, here we are, Friday, April 17th. Kind of sitting here getting ready for another round of storms that are getting ready to hit the area. Kind of sounds like there could be some nasty stuff out there this afternoon and into this evening. So hopefully this message finds everybody safe and sound, and hopefully getting some work done here ahead of this storm. So just wanted to take a little bit of time here and kind of touch on what I've been seeing so far this week. As I've gone out and looked at stuff, overall everything looks really good. The March plantings, a lot of those are up right now, at least on the corn side. You know, got a lot of corn that's VE to V1, and in that stage, some of the earlier March plantings are kind of V1 to maybe even potentially V2. So what's up and out of the ground looks good. Very comfortable with what I see in that window, that everything's going to be okay for the most part, short of hard pounding rain that you may have received in some of these showers that have gone through. But overall, most of these rains came through and were not overly destructive, so that was good to see. I know some of you also have been able to return to the fields here in the last day or two, getting out and to do some more planting, so that's good to see as well. Bean side, I got a picture of some February planted beans actually earlier this week that looked pretty good, surprisingly to a certain degree, but looked good. Had cotyledons that were out and were exposed. Now we got a little bit of some cold temperatures coming in this weekend, but I don't think it's supposed to get much below the 30 mark. We're not looking into like some low 20s or anything crazy like that, so I think even those will be okay. There's plenty of these March beans that are probably at emergence or maybe just starting to come through as well. So overall, what's in the ground looks good. I know everybody that is sitting on the sidelines right now wanting to try to get more planting done, and I'm not going to really hold a guy back at this point if you feel like that's the right thing for you and your operation. But what I will do is just kind of give you a couple things that I look for as I'm returning to those fields. It's always a good idea to check in, not necessarily your best ground in that farm. Look in some of those clay knobs, some of those places where you have not quite as good a soil structure, you have a little more clay content. You know, those nasty knobs that are across that farm or that field, or a low spot where you know it's a little heavier and it holds some water. And I'm not going to expect perfect conditions at this stage in those areas, but if 80-90% of the field is doing okay and you're not going to slab the sidewalls and create an impenetrable layer there for that early root system, I'm not going to worry too much about it at this stage if you feel like you need to go. We're April 17th here, so we've still plenty early on the planting window. You know, more so an importance for high yield isn't necessarily planting date, but planting conditions and even emergence. Those are the things that really drive those high yields. So that's still what we're striving for. But I also don't want to fault the guy for going out there and maybe pushing it on a field or two if he thinks he can be successful, because we don't know what the next 6 weeks bring. As I've told people before, if I knew what the next 6 weeks were going to bring weather-wise, I wouldn't be trying to be out here as an agronomist trying to make recommendations on the day-to-day. I'd be out playing the board in Chicago, and I'd be sitting on the beach somewhere sipping margaritas with my wife. But that's not the case, so you know, I'm not going to sit here and prove or try to convince you that I have all the answers. But what I will say is the things I'm looking for when I do return to those fields. You know, don't be afraid to stop that planter when you get into one of those heavier spots in the field. You know, stop it. You know, take a look at those front disc openers. You know, look at what kind of conditions you're leaving in that sidewall. You know, if you're seeing those slicked off sidewalls where you got potential for those to harden and for those to prohibit that root penetration early, really kind of think about how big of an area that is in that field, and kind of think about what the consequences are that if we don't continue to get some of these rains. So just kind of hit the pause button for just a second. Think about it in some of those areas. Don't be afraid to stop the planter. You know, even when it's in the ground, it's my favorite time to stop the planter when it's in the ground, because you get to see where those V openers are at and kind of what kind of conditions they're cutting through, what those sidewalls actually look like before you close that trench back up. So don't be afraid to do that in the middle of one of those spots if you've got any kind of question on what kind of job you're doing. So And as always, I would say that beans are probably the more forgiving one when it comes to kind of pushing some of these conditions early. And I know there are some guys that are continuing to kind of put some beans in here and there where they can. There's also been some corn that's in the ground, and it's awesome. I think we planted a plot day before yesterday. We had one that went in yesterday, or a couple that went in yesterday. We were supposed to put one in today that didn't make it, just because we were kind of he wanted to continue the planting here ahead of this weather to try to get some more crop put in. So we are making progress here and there. I know everybody wants to be going full tilt at this stage, because kind of like what we have been the last few springs. But this one kind of shows like we may need to have a little bit more patience. So that's kind of my update for this week. Really nothing groundbreaking or earth-shattering at this point. Just kind of a few words of caution as you do return to those fields, to kind of make sure that we're still going into, conditions where we still feel where we can be successful. So as always, if you have any questions or concerns on anything, please feel free to reach out. I'm here to help out where I can. Thank you, and good luck with those storms this afternoon. Thank you.